Hello, group. Welcome to Action Rock Corner. I'm your host, Richard May. Today, a new collection by Queen, Heavy. Yes, they collected the heavy songs, not the usual suspects. These are pretty deep cuts. No, you don't get I Will Rock You, the rock and roll part before they do We Are the Champions. We Are the Champions are not qualified for this collection. No, it doesn't have Tie Your Mother Down. Would have been appropriate. But it's not deep enough. They chose to do fairly deep cuts here. Mind you, all but one cut had been in other collections before. Okay? If you have the patience, I'm going to run down the 10 songs and we'll figure out how deep these things are. But they're good rock and roll songs. They're heavy. It's for us guys. And all of them have videos, or at least a lyric video. Okay, so if you go on YouTube, yes, this is on YouTube, you can check out for yourself, Queen Heavy. You can check out the 10 songs, check out the 10 videos, which you won't get when you buy a vinyl record or whatever. And it's a nice collection of 10 songs. I spent a day listening to this over and over again. I like the 10 songs. I'm not the biggest Queen fan on the block. Well, let me say one more thing. This does span their entire career. Largely the beginning of the career, when they were heavier, and the end of the career, the last record, Innuendo, this one. And of course, the beginning, this one. Is number 2 here? Yeah, number 2 is here. And number 2. So you get a couple tracks from the first record, a track from the second record, and then you're going to the last proper record when Freddie was still alive. And some records in between when I get into the detailed thing. So all got videos spanning their career, all fairly heavy, and I like it. It's a nice collection, and I'm not a deep Queen fan. I demonstrated that I own the first 2, the last proper, and of course I got more behind me. Of course I got greatest hits. I got Roger Taylor solo. Fun in Space behind me is particularly great. I really liked Brian May's 2 solo records. One's behind me, one here. And of course, I love the tribute concert. It's classic. Okay. So, that's what you get. And of course, on cassette. This is how lame I am. On cassette, I got News of the World. If I was really a Queen fan, it would be on CD. No, I got a cheap used cassette. And you got the other stuff, stuff I got from a library sale. And I started to collect Queen during the pandemic to keep my sanity. But no, I'm not a deep Queen fan. It gets much for me. The pop stuff, it gets a bit much. But when they rock, Brian May, Roger Taylor stuff, cool. And of course, Under Pressure, John Deacon's song, cool. Or primarily John Deacon's song. Yeah, I'm not a deep Queen fan. I'm a superficial Queen fan. So I like this collection. Because these are rock and roll, heavy Queen songs. And I like it. So let's go into it. For anyone needs to go past the headline and the lead. That's the lead. Nice 10 songs, 41 minutes of rocking, deep cut Queen songs. Okay? And not the stuff you hear everywhere. Okay? Through, as I'll describe, they're found in other collections and live sets. But no, they're not on, where did I put it? The Greatest Hits. Where's The Greatest Hits? It's not on Greatest Hits, or Greatest Hits 2, or Greatest Hits 3. Exception or two. We'll get to that. So you got the idea. You like anything heavy from Queen? This is what this is. Nice rock and roll Queen. So, you want examples? Let's get to it. Well, let me do the one that has not been collected anywhere else. Well, of course, you own Day at the Races. I don't, apparently. So one feel about Day at the Races, I think I can't read from here. What does this say? No, it's a Night at the Opera. Of course it is. How lame. I don't own Day at the Races. Not even on cassette. So, anyways, as I was about to say, and this is my warning song. And you conservatives, especially racist conservatives, don't want to get guilt-tripped. The song White Man, written by Brian May, about the American Indians here in North America that my ancestors displaced and killed and raped and all that stuff. So Brian May wrote a song called White Man, and you may not like that one. You may be one of those snowflakes that don't want to be told that your ancestors were guilty of genocidal actions against Native Americans 200, 150 years ago. Sorry, it's here to remind you, white man, which I resemble. So that's your warning from Uncle Richard, okay? Yeah, and of course a lot of conservatives would, because this is the gay band, Freddie dying from AIDS and the whole thing. So you're already kind of maybe not down with this band as it was. But White Man may really send you over the cliff. So that's there, and that's not been any other live set, any other collections, to get 3 volumes of deep cuts. And most of this is not even on the deep cut collections. So this is pretty decent deep cut, but that's the run song there's not any other compilation other than A Day of the Races itself. So that's the run song that, it isn't in other places to be found. So let's do this in running order, basically. Ogre Battle. Remember Ogre Battle? From 2. Where is my copy of 2? Queen 2. You're here, Queen 2. You were. Here it is. Queen 2 has Ogre Battle, written by Freddie Mercury. And it has a lyric video with it too. All of them have videos. And that is found on some live material, early live material. Live of the Rainbow, 74. You find a live version there. Night at the Olden Hammersmith in 75, it's found there. And the BBC collections, it's found there. So, and yes, and the first Deep Cuts collection as well. So, yeah, Ogre Battles is laying around in other places. Live versions and the Deep Cut, the first Deep Cuts volume. So that's your first track. So it's been around. Stone Cold Crazy. Of course, you remember Stone Cold Crazy. I threw it on the floor. James Hetfield came out to do Stone Cold Crazy. But Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. It's my Black Sabbath shirt. And of course, Tony Iommi's a class guy, and he basically was the uncredited rhythm guitarist for about the whole thing here. So, you get Stone Cold Crazy in a number of places. Excuse me. Live at the Rainbow, 74. And the first Deep Cuts collection. And you find the original song on Sheer Heart Attack. Fairly deep cut, not super deep. The third song, this is deep. The Hitman. From the last proper record, Innuendo. Okay? You only can find on Deep Cuts 3, outside of this. That's pretty deep. Nice song. The fourth track, Sheer Heart Attack. That's the title track of a record. How can that be a deep cut? Well, it's only been collected or played live. It hasn't been played live that I've seen, at least in anything they've released. Deep Cuts 2 has Sheer Heart Attack. That's the only place you can find Sheer Heart Attack other than the album Sheer Heart Attack. Cool tune. You may be sick of this one. Princes of the Universe. The theme song basically for the Highlander TV series, and was used in the movie, or a movie. And it's on Hits 3, Greatest Hits 3. Princes of the Universe is found there. And for a record proper, A Kind of Magic, it's found there. So that's, ironically, kind of deep. It's not a Greatest Hits collection, but it's 3. Greatest Hits 3. Not 1, not 2, 3. So let's count that as a fairly deep cut. Son and Daughter, from the self-titled debut from Queen. This is the debut, yes it is. Okay. So Son and Daughter written by Brian May. That's performed at Live in the Rainbow 74 and Night at the Odeon Hammersmith 75 and a BBC session. So it's fairly deep, not super deep. It was nice to have. Good tune. Dead on Time, written by Brian May, from the jazz record. I don't own jazz, do I? It's not behind me, is it? I don't think so. That's Hot Spaces, no, it's not there. The library sold it before I got my hands on it. That's on Cheap Cuts too. All right, so that's pretty deep. Even if it was on Deep Cuts too. Liar, which is on self-titled debut and was performed on Live in the Rainbow 74 and The Night at the Odeon Hammersmith 75 and BBC. The video you get for Liar is the BBC recording of them performing Liar. Is that what you get on the record itself? As you may have noticed, this is not a physical copy of Heavy. So is that what you're getting? And I imagine it is. But don't quote me. But if you watch on YouTube, you get the video from the BBC. White Man we discussed in the last song, Headlong. That was a pretty good rocking tune. That was. And that's in the second song from Innuendo. It's also found on Greatest Hits 2. And it was primarily written by Brian May, but the band gets a piece of publishing. Headlong was going to be on the Brian May solo record up there. Back in the Light, if I remember the title correctly. But he liked how Freddie Mercury sang it. He went, okay, you guys can have it. And then he shared the writing credit. So, fairly deep. It's on Greatest Hits too, but it's a fairly deep cut. So, as we discussed, fairly deep cuts, mostly found elsewhere, so it's not totally that deep, but it's not on your first Greatest Hits record. It's not found here. With one exception, it's on the live shows or anything. I looked around. I looked at all the live concert collections and whatever. So it's not found on the live sets, after in the later 70s or the 80s sets. Pretty deep cuts, good tunes, no pop, none of that nonsense, no ballads. It's rock, is what you were waiting for. A nice collection of heavy Queen for 10 tracks straight, 41 minutes of rock, okay, without them getting silly. So, is that what you needed to know about Queen Heavy? And of course, it's here on YouTube. Check it out for yourself. And I'm sure it's at your store. It's at a store right now. Lord knows if a store doesn't carry new Queen, you're in a pretty lame store. Of course, most stores are lame. Except for the ones that are my friends. I got three stores I consider to be kind of buddies. But will they have Queen heavy at their stores? I expect two of them to have it. You like this video? Give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the notification bell for when the next video is coming out. And leave a comment. Go listen to, well, you heard Queen. And some of you are really deep Queen fans. Why are you? You're deeper than me? Do you know these 10 songs? Love these 10 songs? Happy to have a collection of just these 10 songs together? To have a heavy collection? Are you happy to have this? Is this what you've been waiting for? So, if we're latest in action rock, garage rock, and legacy bands like Queen, not every Queen collection. No. There's another one that came out. Icons or something like that? No. I think I'm going to skip that. I saw this, thank you YouTube. YouTube informed me of this collection. And, new this week. Thank you, YouTube. You did good. Because I don't get press releases. I'm trying to get on the list of telling me if you got a record out. 21st century is difficult for learning about new records. Remember, boys and girls, if you're in a band, it's up to you to promote your records. Okay? Don't be shy. When you find a reviewer like me, beg me to review your record. You need publicity. Even Queen needs publicity, believe it or not. Okay? They need you to know this is out there. And now you do. So, thank you for watching. Remember, fresh music is as important as fresh food. And have fun with your music. And I find this a whole lot more fun than is this more fun than anything else I ever heard from Queen? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would say that. Is this now my new favorite Queen collection? Yes. Yes. Easily. And it might be yours too. So thank you for watching. See you again soon.